Captain Laura Harris stood on the observation deck of the Odyssey, gazing out at the vast expanse of space. The ship, a sleek and powerful vessel designed for deep space exploration, was moving further from the familiar stars of Earth with each passing moment. The crew had been out here for years, exploring uncharted systems, cataloging distant planets, and searching for signs of intelligent life. But this was different. "Captain, you need to see this." Lieutenant Akira Lee's voice crackled over the comms, urgent yet calm. Laura turned away from the window and hurried to the bridge. Akira, the ship's lead communications officer, was already hunched over the data console, eyes wide in disbelief. "What's going on, Lieutenant?" Laura asked, stepping up beside him. Akira didn't look up. "We've picked up a signal, Captain. It's unlike anything we've ever encountered. We were just scanning a dead star system, something we've done dozens of times before, when this popped up on the radar." Laura frowned. "A signal? From who?" "I don't know, but it's ancient," Akira said, his fingers dancing across the screen. "The signal's frequencies are all wrong. It's not any form of communication we've ever analyzed. It's not even close. But it's structured, deliberate, almost like it's sending us a message." Laura stared at the screen, her mind racing. "How far away is it?" "About 47 light years," Akira replied, still focused on the data. "But that's not the weird part, Captain. It's been there, for centuries, at least." Laura's breath caught in her throat. "Centuries? Are you telling me this signal has been traveling through space for centuries, and no one noticed until now?" Akira nodded slowly, looking up at her with a mix of awe and confusion. "Exactly. And it's still broadcasting, at full power, like it's meant to be heard, like it's waiting for someone to pick it up." Laura felt a chill creep up her spine. The implications were mind-boggling. The signal could be from an ancient civilization, one that had left a message, potentially meant for whoever would come across it. But why? And why hadn't anyone found it before? "Get a team together," Laura ordered, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of thoughts in her mind. "I want to know everything about this signal. The origin, the contents, everything. We need to find out what it's trying to tell us." As Akira nodded and began to coordinate with the other members of the crew, Laura's mind began to spin with possibilities. A message from another civilization, sent eons ago, now discovered by a crew of humans from a planet that had only recently learned to reach the stars. Could this be a breakthrough? Or perhaps a warning? Moments later, Lieutenant Akira sent the signal data to the crew's decoding team. The ancient transmission wasn't in any known language or code. Instead, it appeared to be a series of complex mathematical patterns, geometric symbols, and cosmic coordinates, things that couldn't possibly be random. "Do we have any idea who might have sent this?" Laura asked, trying to focus on the task at hand. Akira shook his head. "Nothing yet, Captain. The patterns don't match anything we've seen in previous alien encounters. But there's something about them, something purposeful. It's almost like a blueprint, like whoever sent it was trying to guide us somewhere." Laura stared at the screen, her heart pounding. This wasn't just a transmission. It was a message, and for the first time since leaving Earth, she felt a deep sense of unease. "Keep me updated on any new findings," she said, turning to leave the bridge. "I'll be in my quarters." As she walked away, her thoughts raced. What did this signal mean? And more importantly, what had it been warning about? Something told her that the Odyssey's mission had just taken a turn into uncharted territory, and there was no turning back. "You said." The days blurred together as the crew of the Odyssey worked tirelessly to decode the cryptic signal. Lieutenant Akira Lee and his team of engineers and data analysts pored over the patterns, searching for any clues that could reveal the origins or the meaning of the transmission. The crew's initial excitement had shifted into a quiet, persistent tension. Something about the message felt more urgent the longer they studied it, as if it was trying to tell them something important. something that needed to be understood before it was too late. Captain Laura Harris couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing at the edge of something monumental. The message wasn't just a signal. It was a puzzle that had waited eons to be solved. As she stood in the control room, she watched as the team ran test after test, trying to make sense of the symbols and data that filled the screens. "We've made progress," Captain Akira said, looking up from his terminal with a mixture of excitement and exhaustion. "The signal is definitely artificial. It's not just random noise. It's been crafted by someone, or something, with purpose. But the structure, it's beyond anything we've encountered." Laura leaned over the console, studying the data. The transmission was filled with intricate patterns that repeated at irregular intervals, almost like a complex rhythm. The symbols themselves were geometric, resembling a blend of mathematics, star charts, and alien script. But what stood out the most was the central part of the signal. 3 coordinates that appeared to be in a language of numbers and symbols not even Earth's best cryptographers could recognize. "What about the coordinates?" Laura asked. "Can we track them?" Akira's fingers flew across the console. "We've been tracking the coordinates for the past few hours. They correspond to 3 separate star systems, but what's strange is that the stars themselves don't show any signs of habitation. Nothing on the scanner suggests intelligent life." Laura raised an eyebrow. "So the coordinates point to places where there's nothing." "Exactly," Akira replied. "It's as if someone wanted us to go to these locations, but there's no clear reason why." Laura's mind raced. Why would an ancient civilization leave such specific coordinates to places with no apparent life? The idea of reaching out into deep space only to find empty stars unsettled her, but something told her this wasn't just about exploration. The pattern seemed too deliberate, too intentional to ignore. There was a greater purpose behind these coordinates. "Could there be something we're missing?" she asked, her voice thoughtful. "Some kind of hidden technology or artifact?" "I don't know, Captain," Akira replied, his voice tight. "But the message feels like a map that leads somewhere. And I think it's meant for us." With renewed focus, the crew set their course for the first of the 3 locations, a star system located on the far edge of the galaxy, an area known for being devoid of any notable celestial bodies. The ship moved through the cold void of space, each day feeling longer than the last as the crew eagerly anticipated their arrival. After several days in transit, they arrived at the first set of coordinates. The star system was as empty as expected, nothing but a solitary star with a scattering of dead asteroids orbiting it. However, as they neared the system, the instruments picked up a faint anomaly, something that didn't belong. "Captain, you might want to see this," Akira said, his voice tinged with surprise. Laura quickly made her way to the bridge. "What is it, Lieutenant?" On the screen, a small dim object appeared, almost invisible against the backdrop of the vast emptiness. The scanners had identified it as an artificial object, buried deep within the asteroid field. "It looks like some kind of structure," Akira murmured. "It's old. Really old. But it's definitely not natural." Laura felt a surge of anticipation. Could this be the first of the hidden secrets the message had promised? "Prepare to investigate. Let's see what we've uncovered." As the Odyssey carefully maneuvered toward the object, Laura's heart raced. This was just the beginning. The mysterious coordinates had led them here. Now, they were on the cusp of uncovering something that could change everything. What was hidden in that asteroid field? And who had left it there, waiting for someone to find it? The crew was about to find out. And there was no turning back. The Odyssey hovered in the asteroid field, its engines purring softly as the crew observed the mysterious structure from a distance. The object was embedded deep within an ancient, cracked asteroid, nearly invisible unless you knew where to look. It appeared to be some kind of elongated metallic monolith, its surface covered in strange symbols that glowed faintly in the dim light of the distant star. The structure had clearly been there for an unfathomable amount of time. its design worn and eroded by centuries of cosmic exposure. "Captain, we've locked onto the object's coordinates," Lieutenant accurately reported. "We're sending a team down. We'll need an EVA suit and a small shuttle to access the structure. It looks like there's a way inside." Laura stood silently for a moment, her mind racing. This was the first real sign that they weren't alone in the cosmos. This wasn't just another space relic. It was a message, and it seemed to beckon them forward. They were about to cross a line into unknown territory, and there was no way of knowing what would come next. "All right, get the shuttle prepped. I'll be going with you," Laura said, her voice resolute. She wasn't about to let her crew face whatever this was alone. If there was something hidden here, something important, she would see it through herself. Minutes later, Captain Harris, Lieutenant Acura, and a small team of engineers were aboard the shuttle, heading toward the asteroid. The metallic monolith loomed ahead, and as they drew closer, its sheer size became apparent. It was massive, easily several hundred feet in length, its surface marked with intricate patterns and symbols that seemed to pulse faintly. The closer they got, the more the symbols seemed to rearrange themselves, forming a language that seemed almost alive. "Are those shifting?" asked one of the engineers, his voice incredulous. "Yes," Acura responded. "The patterns are dynamic. I've never seen anything like it." The shuttle landed softly on the asteroid's surface, and the crew exited. They were tethered to the shuttle by safety lines, floating in the low gravity of the asteroid. The structure's surface was smooth, almost polished, despite the damage surrounding it. The team moved toward the entrance, where the glowing symbols had converged into a pattern that resembled an ancient lock. "We're going to need to figure out how to open this," Laura said, examining the symbols closely. "Any ideas?" Acura stepped forward, carefully scanning the lock with his portable device. "These symbols are similar to the ones in the signal we intercepted. I think this is some kind of interface. It's trying to communicate." "Communicate how?" Laura asked, her heart pounding. Acura didn't answer immediately. Instead, he began to manipulate the symbols, using his device to make adjustments. Slowly, a low hum filled the air, and the symbols shifted once more, rearranging themselves into a familiar, readable format. "It's a message," Acura said, his voice low. "It's in a language that's not quite human, but the device is translating it for us. It says, 'To the inheritors of the stars, beware the path you walk.'" The word struck Laura like a bolt of lightning. Inheritors of the stars. That's us. We're the inheritors. "Yes," Acura agreed, his face pale. "But look, there's more." The symbols shifted again, and more text appeared. "The guardians have watched. The cycle is inevitable. Beware the darkness that will come." Laura felt a chill crawl up her spine. "Guardians? What does that mean? And what cycle?" Before anyone could respond, the structure seemed to come alive. The metallic surface split open with a low, grinding sound, revealing a hidden chamber inside. The glow from within was faint, but it was enough to illuminate the walls. As the team stepped inside, they were met with an eerie sight. The walls were covered in more symbols. But this time, they were etched into the stone, creating a kind of cosmic map. Acura pulled out a holographic projector, and the map flickered to life. The image revealed star systems, planets, and constellations, all connected by glowing lines, almost like an ancient network. But the most striking feature was the way the map seemed to focus on Earth, marked by a single, ominous red symbol. It was surrounded by countless other symbols, some familiar, but others alien in their design. "These aren't just stars," Acura said quietly. "These are civilizations that the Guardians have watched over. And it looks like Earth is the next on their radar." Laura stared at the map, her mind reeling. The Guardians were real. They had been watching Earth all along, perhaps even guiding its evolution. But why? And why leave such a cryptic warning now? The answers were out there, buried in the stars. But they were only just beginning to uncover them. And one thing was certain. Whatever the Guardians had seen, it wasn't good. "We need to keep going," Laura said, her voice steady but urgent. "There's more to this. We need to find out what happened to the Guardians and why they left these warnings for us." The Odyssey crew had crossed into a new chapter of their mission, and what lay ahead could change everything they thought they knew about humanity's place in the universe. The revelation of the Guardians had sent shockwaves through the crew of the Odyssey. With the cosmic map now in hand, Captain Laura Harris and her team were more determined than ever to uncover the full history behind the ancient protectors who had watched over Earth and countless other civilizations. The message was clear. The Guardians had witnessed the rise and fall of countless species, and now Earth was on the brink of a similar fate. The warning was both a challenge and an invitation. But why had they left so little information about themselves? The team spent days studying the symbols and inscriptions inside the structure. Akira worked tirelessly to translate more of the hidden messages, and what he found was even more disconcerting. The Guardians, it seemed, had once been the undisputed protectors of the galaxy, safeguarding countless civilizations, guiding them toward progress, and helping them avoid the mistakes of their predecessors. But there was a dark side to their legacy, a side that hinted at their ultimate failure. "Captain, you need to see this," Akira called out to Laura as he scanned the latest set of symbols on the wall. She made her way over to the holographic interface, where Akira had projected a new set of images. This time, it wasn't just star maps or symbols. It was a timeline stretching across millennia, depicting the rise and fall of countless civilizations under the Guardians' watchful eyes. "As you can see," Akira continued, "the Guardians weren't just passive observers. They actively intervened, helping countless species avoid self-destruction. But look at the last few civilizations here." He pointed to a series of glowing dots on the timeline. "These are the ones that failed, the ones they couldn't save." Laura felt a knot form in her stomach as she studied the images. Each of the failed civilizations had a distinct pattern, one that mirrored the trajectory Earth was currently on: rapid technological advancement, environmental collapse, and eventual war. These were the same mistakes humanity was already on the verge of repeating. The Guardians had tried, and failed, to stop this cycle. But why? Laura asked, her voice tense. If they could intervene, why couldn't they stop these civilizations from falling? Akira shook his head. "That's what I don't understand. According to the inscriptions, the Guardians were powerful, far beyond anything we've imagined. Yet, they failed. They could protect against external threats, even help guide civilizations through their growing pains. But there's something about the internal nature of these species that doomed them. A flaw they couldn't change." Laura ran her hand through her hair, frustrated. A flaw? What kind of flaw could bring down entire civilizations? "Hubris," Akira said quietly. "It's always the same. A species grows too fast, becomes too powerful, and thinks they can control everything. They forget the value of balance between progress, nature, and each other. Eventually, they destroy themselves from within." The weight of his words sank deep into Laura's chest. Earth had come so far, so much faster than anyone could have imagined. Humanity had broken through the bounds of its own planet, reached out into the stars, and started to build something greater. But now they stood on the precipice of repeating the mistakes that had doomed so many before them. "Is that what the Guardians were trying to prevent?" Laura asked, her voice trembling with the realization. "Is that why they left these warnings?" "I think so," Akira replied, looking at the map once more. "They've seen it before. The cycle, the mistakes. And now, it's Earth's turn." Laura turned away from the map, her gaze drifting out the viewport of the Odyssey, where the cold emptiness of space stretched endlessly in front of them. The stars twinkled like distant beacons, and for a moment, she wondered if the Guardians were still watching, waiting to see if humanity would heed their warnings or fall victim to the same destructive forces that had claimed so many others. How do we break the cycle? Laura asked, her voice soft but resolute. Akira hesitated. I don't know, Captain. The Guardians left no clear answers. All we have are the warnings. The only thing I know for sure is that the decisions we make now will shape the future of Earth, the path we're on. It's not just a path of progress. It's a path of destruction. The room fell silent as the weight of their situation settled over the crew. They weren't just explorers anymore. They were the inheritors of a legacy of hope, failure, and unanswered questions. The Guardians had tried to protect those they watched. But now, the task had fallen to humanity. Perhaps, Laura said finally, the Guardians wanted us to learn from their mistakes. Not just to survive, but to evolve. To be better than they were. Akira nodded slowly, his eyes scanning the ancient map one last time. But we have to decide. If we're not careful, we'll make the same mistakes they did. And history will repeat itself. Laura stood tall, a newfound sense of determination hardening her resolve. Then we'll make sure history doesn't repeat itself. We've come this far. We owe it to ourselves, and to the Guardians, to get it right. The crew of the Odyssey wasn't just on a mission to explore the stars anymore. They were now tasked with the survival of Earth itself. And as they prepared to continue their journey, the message of the Guardians rang louder in their minds. The cycle is inevitable, but it is not too late to change it. As the Odyssey continued its journey deeper into the cosmos, the revelations about the Guardians and the impending fate of Earth weighed heavily on Captain Laura Harris and her crew. The warning was clear. The cycle of rise and fall was inevitable, and humanity had already set itself on a dangerous path. But there was still one critical question left unanswered. What could they do to break the cycle? The ancient structure, deep within the asteroid field, had revealed much, but it hadn't provided the key to salvation. The Guardians had failed despite their advanced technology, and their message had not offered an easy solution. They had left Earth a map, a warning, and a plea for intervention, but no clear instructions on how to avoid the same fate. Humanity, it seemed, was on its own now. We need to dig deeper, Laura said to her senior officers in the briefing room. The Guardians left us a message, but we've only scratched the surface. We need to figure out why they couldn't prevent the destruction of those civilizations, and what, if anything, we can do to stop Earth from making the same mistakes. Lieutenant Akira Lee, who had become the primary translator and researcher, nodded. The Guardians' failures weren't just about external threats. They were about the internal flaws of the civilizations they tried to protect. There's something about the way these societies progress that leads to their downfall, something intrinsic. But what is it? The room fell silent, the gravity of their mission settling in. For all their technological advances and the knowledge they'd gained from the Guardians, the crew of the Odyssey felt like they were groping in the dark. Humanity's future was at stake, and there was no simple solution. The next few days were consumed with research. Akira and the other officers scored every data file, every artifact, and every symbol that the Guardians had left behind, searching for a clue. And it was during one of these late-night sessions that Akira made a breakthrough. "Captain," Akira called, his voice urgent, "I think I found something. It's a sequence, a pattern. The Guardians didn't just watch and intervene. They also left behind a series of ancient devices scattered throughout the galaxy. These devices were meant to help civilizations, help them avoid the same mistakes, to reset the course when necessary." Laura stood, her curiosity piqued. "Are you saying these devices can stop the cycle, prevent Earth's fall?" Akira nodded. "I think so. These devices were hidden away, placed in key locations throughout the galaxy. Each one holds immense power, capable of altering the course of a civilization's development. But the problem is, no one knows how to activate them. The devices are locked behind complex algorithms and cryptic codes, like a safeguard. The Guardians didn't want just anyone to use them. They were meant to be a last resort. Laura felt a spark of hope. So there's a chance. There is a chance, Akira interrupted. But it's a slim one. We don't know where all the devices are, and we don't know how to unlock them. The Guardians must have left some kind of key, some method to decipher the codes, but we haven't found it yet. Laura looked out the viewport, the stars shimmering in the distance. The journey ahead was uncertain, and the stakes were higher than ever. We've already found one hidden structure. If there are more, we need to track them down. They might be the only way to save Earth. The plan was set. The Odyssey would seek out the remaining devices, wherever they might be hidden. Each one represented a potential key to saving Earth, but time was running out. With every passing day, the risk of humanity making the same mistakes as the other civilizations grew. As the crew set course for the next set of coordinates provided by the Guardian's map, Laura couldn't help but wonder if they were truly prepared for what lay ahead. They had seen a glimpse of the future, one where Earth's destruction was imminent. But could they unlock the secrets of the Guardians in time? And even if they did, would it be enough to change the course of humanity's destiny? As the ship moved further into uncharted space, Laura couldn't shake the feeling that they were not just searching for ancient technology. They were hunting for the very key to survival. The galaxy was vast, and the Guardians' legacy stretched far, but the fate of Earth had now become a race against time. Every decision they made from here on out would either bring them closer to saving their planet or sealing its doom. "Get ready," Laura said to her crew as they approached their next destination. "The Guardians may have failed, but we won't." Her words, though resolute, were laced with the weight of uncertainty. In the end, the Odyssey's crew wasn't just fighting for their own survival. They were fighting for the future of all humanity, and perhaps the future of the cosmos itself. The Odyssey cut through the void of space, its engines humming steadily as the crew focused on their next destination, an uncharted system at the edge of the galaxy. According to the Guardian's map, this was where the next device was hidden, one that could potentially change the course of Earth's fate. But as the days turned into weeks, the crew grew increasingly uneasy. They had ventured far beyond the familiar confines of known space, into the uncharted darkness, where even the most advanced sensors barely worked. Despite the vast emptiness of the system, the tension among the crew was palpable. Each member of the Odyssey's team had come to terms with their role in this mission. They were not just explorers or scientists. They were humanity's last hope. But no one knew if they would succeed. The further they went, the more they realized how fragile their mission truly was. "Approaching the coordinates now, Captain," Akira Lee reported from the bridge. His voice was steady, but the strain of weeks spent searching for ancient, nearly forgotten relics was beginning to show. Laura stood at the helm, her gaze fixed on the viewport. The system was eerily quiet. No stars, no planets, just the cold, silent emptiness of deep space. It felt like they were being watched, a sensation that had become almost unbearable the longer they spent in this desolate place. "We've reached the location," Akira said, his fingers flying across the console. "There's something out there, but it's not what we expected." On the screen, a massive anomaly appeared, a faint, distorted object that barely registered on their scanners. It was almost as though it was cloaked, hidden from view. The object shimmered slightly, as if it were part of the very fabric of space itself. "That's the device?" Laura asked, a hint of disbelief in her voice. It was far too small to be the relic they'd been searching for, yet something about it radiated a sense of significance, of importance. "I believe so, Captain," Akira replied. "It's strange. It seems to be part of a larger structure, but we're not seeing the full picture. It's almost like it's hiding in plain sight." Laura's mind raced. Could this be a form of ancient technology so advanced that it could manipulate light or space itself? Or was there something else at work, something they hadn't yet discovered about the Guardian's legacy? "Prepare a shuttle," Laura ordered, her tone firm. "We need to investigate. Get a team ready to board." Minutes later, Laura, Akira, and a small crew were descending toward the object in a shuttle, their hearts pounding with anticipation. The atmosphere in the small craft was tense, the crew members exchanging nervous glances as they approached the anomaly. As the shuttle neared the object, it became clearer that it was not just a single device, but a vast, interconnected network of crystalline structures that seemed to hum with a low, vibrating energy. The entire formation appeared to pulse with light, reacting to their presence as though it were aware of their approach. "Captain, this is unlike anything we've ever encountered," one of the engineers, Lieutenant Reyes, said, her voice awestruck. "It's almost like a living organism, the way it responds to us. It's as if it's aware." "Could this be part of the Guardian's technology?" Laura asked, her mind racing with possibilities. "Is it watching us, waiting for something?" Akira stared at the structures, his brow furrowed in concentration. "I think it is. These devices aren't just physical. They're part of a larger network. A web of guardianship spread across the galaxy. Each device seems to be a watchful eye, monitoring the progress of civilizations, nudging them toward survival or destruction." As they moved closer, the structure suddenly shifted, revealing a hidden opening, like an ancient door slowly creaking open. The ship's sensors detected a strange energy field emanating from within, and as the shuttle passed through, the entire crew was enveloped in a wave of static and electrical interference. When the disturbance cleared, they found themselves in an enormous chamber, so vast that its walls seemed to stretch endlessly into darkness. In the center of the room was an obelisk-like structure, glowing softly. It was made of the same crystalline material as the network outside, but its surface was smooth, unmarred by time or decay. "This is it," Akira said, his voice a mix of awe and reverence. "The heart of the device." Laura stepped forward, her boots clicking softly on the chamber's metallic floor. The obelisk seemed to call to her, its light pulsing with a rhythmic beat that mirrored her own heartbeat. It was both beautiful and unsettling, as if it were a living thing, waiting to communicate something vital. As they moved closer, a surge of energy coursed through the chamber, and the obelisk began to glow brighter. Symbols flashed on its surface, mirroring the patterns they had seen on the Guardian's maps. But this time, the symbols weren't just static. They seemed to shift, forming an intricate web of connections. A message that was alive, evolving with every moment. "Look at this," Akira whispered, pointing to the symbols on the obelisk's surface. "It's a blueprint, but not for technology. This is a blueprint for society, for humanity." Laura felt a chill run through her. "It's showing us how to avoid the cycle. It's teaching us how to break free from the mistakes of the past." The obelisk pulsed again, and then, as if in response to their thoughts, a voice boomed in the chamber, a voice not of flesh and blood, but of something ancient, something far older. "The time has come. The inheritors must choose." The crew froze, stunned by the sudden ethereal presence. The voice, deep and resonant, seemed to reverberate within their very bones. "Choose," Laura repeated, barely able to comprehend. "Choose what?" The voice answered with a single word that echoed in the silence. "Survival." The Odyssey crew stood frozen, realizing that the choice they were about to make wasn't just about saving Earth. It was about something far greater. The future of humanity, the galaxy, and perhaps all sentient life. And the time to make that choice was running out. The words echoed in the vast chamber, a powerful and resonant command that vibrated through the very air around them. Survival. The single word held within it the fate of humanity, the legacy of the Guardians, and the destiny of the universe itself. Captain Laura Harris felt a cold shiver ripple down her spine. She looked at her crew, their faces a mix of awe, confusion, and fear. The voice that had spoken seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, reverberating through their minds as much as their ears. It was as though they were being weighed on some cosmic scale, and the consequences of their next actions would echo across eternity. Survival, Laura repeated, her voice barely a whisper. The enormity of what was being asked of them was beginning to sink in. This wasn't just about Earth's survival. It was about something far greater. The Guardians had tried and failed, but now the responsibility had fallen to them. Accurately stepped forward, his eyes wide as he scanned the glowing obelisk. The Guardians, they left us a choice. This device, this structure. It's not just a tool, it's a decision. It's the last test, the final decision point. Laura nodded slowly, her mind working through the implications. What kind of decision? What do we have to do? The voice, still echoing, answered once more. The cycle of the inheritors must end. You have seen the warnings. You have witnessed the failures. To survive, you must choose the path of unity, the path of balance. But it is not without cost. The path you take will shape your future and the future of all worlds. The obelisk's light flickered and shifted, creating a complex pattern of symbols on its surface. Akira's device, which had been translating the symbols up to this point, began to buzz erratically. I think it's trying to show us something. A warning, maybe, or a decision we have to make. The Guardians didn't just fail because they couldn't stop the external threats. It was because they couldn't convince the civilizations to choose unity over conflict. Laura's mind raced. The message was clear. To survive, humanity had to choose unity over division, balance over unchecked progress. But how could they convince billions of people on Earth, let alone the governments and factions, to abandon their power struggles, greed, and self-interest? The road to unity was far from clear, and the obstacles were numerous. You're saying that the Guardians tried to prevent civilizations from falling by guiding them toward cooperation, but they couldn't succeed because of internal human flaws, right? Laura asked. Exactly, Ekura replied. They gave civilizations the tools to succeed, but they couldn't change the mindset of the people. Every species has its own flaw, and it's a flaw that inevitably leads to their downfall. Greed, pride, the desire for control. The Guardians tried to guide them, but in the end, the choice had to be made by the people. A silence fell over the group as they processed the enormity of the decision. To break the cycle, humanity had to evolve, to overcome its inherent flaws and embrace a new way of thinking. But could it be done? Could humanity really change? We're running out of time, Laura said, her voice firm, though tinged with uncertainty. The message is clear. We must unite. But we're not just talking about a peace treaty or a new world order. We're talking about changing the very way humanity thinks, the very core of who we are. The room was quiet for a long moment as the gravity of their situation set in. The universe had watched them. The Guardians had failed. And now it was up to Earth's inheritors to break free from the cycle. But the question remained, how could they convince humanity to abandon its centuries-old patterns of division and self-interest? Captain, Lieutenant Ray spoke up from behind them. This is going to take more than just a decision. It's going to take a movement, a collective effort. If we're to survive, Earth will need to unite under one purpose, and it can't be just Earth. It has to be the entire human race. If we are to avoid the same fate as the civilizations before us, we need to act now. Laura turned to face her crew. She could see the fear in their eyes, but also a glimmer of hope, a willingness to fight for something greater than themselves. They had witnessed the downfall of countless species, but they had also seen the possibility for change, and it was that possibility that drove them forward. We have the knowledge now, Laura said, her voice growing stronger. The choice is in our hands. If we fail, Earth will become just another forgotten civilization, lost to the cycle. But if we succeed, we can break that cycle and change the course of humanity's future forever. The obelisk pulsed again, and the voice returned, echoing through the chamber. The path of unity is not an easy one. It is fraught with sacrifice and doubt. You must be willing to let go of the past to embrace the future. The Guardians can guide you, but the choice to act lies with you. The cycle ends here, if you choose to end it. The room was still, the weight of the decision settling over them like a heavy blanket. The path forward was unclear, but there was no turning back now. They had seen the future of Earth, and it was a future that could either be saved or destroyed by their actions. Laura took a deep breath, meeting the eyes of her crew. We make this decision together. We unite for the future of humanity. We choose to end the cycle. And with that, the crew of the Odyssey knew that they had taken the first step. The road ahead would not be easy, but they would face it together, united, with hope in their hearts, and the weight of the universe on their shoulders. The choice had been made. Now, they would have to fight for survival. The Odyssey was silent as it made its way back to Earth. The crew, though exhausted from their journey, was determined. They had made the decision. The message from the Guardians had been clear, and now it was up to them to carry the weight of that decision back to humanity. But the road ahead would not be an easy one. The unity they sought was not just a matter of gathering political leaders or military power. It was a transformation, a reawakening of the human spirit itself. Captain Laura Harris stood on the bridge, staring out into the vast expanse of space. The stars twinkled like distant beacons, almost as if they were watching, waiting for humanity to choose its path. The time for action was drawing closer, and with each passing moment, the reality of what they faced became clearer. We've gathered the knowledge, and we have the power, Laura said quietly, speaking to herself more than to anyone else. But the hardest part lies ahead. How do we convince the world to change? Akira Lee, who had been working tirelessly on the communications relay, turned to her. The device we found. Captain, it's not just technology. It's a blueprint for the future. It's a guide for a new society, one based on balance, cooperation, and shared responsibility. But to make it work, we need to reach every corner of Earth. It's not enough to have the knowledge. People need to see it for themselves. They need to believe. Laura nodded. But can we change the hearts and minds of billions of people? Can we really convince Earth's leaders to abandon their old ways? Greed, division, power struggles, and embrace unity. We have no choice but to try, Akira said softly. If we don't, Earth will fall just like the civilizations before us. The weight of those words hung in the air. Laura understood. The Odyssey had come so far. The Guardians had given them a chance to break free from the destructive cycle that had claimed countless civilizations before them. But now, humanity had to rise to the occasion. It would require more than just hope. It would take action, dedication, and an unrelenting belief in the possibility of a better future. As they approached Earth, the crew began their preparations. The data they had gathered, the message of unity, would be broadcast to every nation on the planet. There would be no hiding from it. Humanity would be faced with a choice: to accept the path of unity and balance, or continue down the road of division and self-destruction. Are we ready? Laura asked, turning to Akira as he prepared the final transmission. As ready as we can be, Akira replied. The message will go out in 30 minutes. It's in every language, every form of communication we could access. The Guardian's teachings are embedded in it, and we've shown the blueprint. It's up to the people now. Laura took a deep breath and stood tall. This was it, the culmination of everything they had worked for. The choice was no longer theirs alone. It was in the hands of humanity. The broadcast began. The screen in front of Laura flickered to life, and she saw her face reflected back at her, as well as the faces of her crew. They spoke as one, each of them conveying the message that had been passed down to them from the Guardians. People of Earth, Laura began, her voice resolute but filled with compassion. The Guardians have shown us the path forward, a path of unity, balance, and shared responsibility. For centuries, we have been divided by greed, war, and self-interest. But we now know the cost of that division. The cycle of rise and fall, of destruction and rebirth, is one we must break. We stand at the crossroads of our future, Akira continued, and the decision we make will shape the destiny of all life on Earth. The time has come to choose. Will we unite as one, to build a future of peace and cooperation, or will we continue down the path of destruction, repeating the mistakes of those who came before us? The message was broadcast to every nation, every satellite, every communication network on Earth. For the first time, humanity had a choice that transcended borders, races, and ideologies. It was not about power or control. It was about survival, and the survival of Earth depended on the unity of its people. The crew watched as the message spread. It was in the hands of the world now, and all they could do was wait. Days passed, and the tension on the Odyssey grew thicker. Reports came in from Earth's leaders, from cities, from activists, from everyday citizens. The world was divided. Some rejected the message, claiming it was impossible to change humanity's nature, that unity was an ideal, not a reality. Others embraced it, calling for an era of cooperation, for the end of war, for the beginning of a new age. But as the days turned into weeks, something remarkable began to happen. Slowly, steadily, humanity started to listen. Divisions began to soften, old grudges faded, and a movement of unity started to take root. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But there was hope. "We're not done yet," Laura said, as the first signs of a global movement began to take shape. "But this is the beginning of something new. The cycle is ending, not with the destruction of Earth, but with its rebirth." And as the crew of the Odyssey watched Earth begin its long, difficult transformation, they knew one thing for certain. They had made the right choice. The cycle had been broken, not through force or technology, but through the will of humanity itself. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in history, it was in humanity's hands, united, and with the chance to shape a better world for generations to come.